There's something eerie about the silence of a Capricorn. It's not cold. It's not distant. It's something deeper. It's the silence of someone who doesn't need to raise their voice, because they already made their decision. While others are seduced by chaos, Capricorn lives by code. Not a code written by society, but one etched into their bones since the day they were born. You can't bend them with emotion. You can't bribe them with praise. And you sure as hell can't rush them with pressure. Capricorns walk through life like they've been here before. Because maybe they have. Old souls in young bodies, carrying timelines no one else sees. While you're playing checkers, they're studying blueprints. They are not impressed by loud egos or flashy success. You can wave desire in front of them, they will still choose discipline. You can throw a tantrum, a threat, or a sob story, they will still choose truth. And here's the secret people don't want to admit. You can't control a Capricorn, because they've already mastered self-control. So today, we're diving deep into a part of the zodiac that's often misunderstood. This video isn't just about astrology. It's about power, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need permission. The kind that doesn't ask to be seen, but once it is, you never forget it. We're going to reveal the 12 reasons why Capricorn is the most unshakable sign in the zodiac. Why people fail to manipulate them. Why their calm unnerves the insecure. Why their silence speaks louder than 1,000 arguments. And most of all, why trying to control a Capricorn isn't just difficult. It's impossible. So if you've ever tried to push them, sway them, charm them, or guilt them, let me save you some time. They saw through it before you even finished your sentence. Capricorns don't react. They choose. And in that choice, they become untouchable. Welcome to Zodiac Secrets Revealed, where we uncover not just the traits, but the truth. Stay until the end, because by the time this video is over, you'll finally understand why Capricorn doesn't play the game. They write the rules. Reason 1. They respond with logic, not pressure. If you try to pressure a Capricorn, you might as well be trying to move a mountain with your bare hands. Capricorns don't respond to emotional theatrics. They don't crumble when someone raises their voice, and they certainly don't change their course because of guilt, fear, or manipulation. Why? Because their decision-making process doesn't run on emotional fuel, it runs on logic, structure, and long-term impact. To understand a Capricorn is to understand restraint. Imagine trying to argue with a judge in the middle of a courtroom, passionate, loud, desperate, while the judge simply watches, waits, and weighs the facts. That's Capricorn. They won't jump into your storm. They'll let it pass and then calmly ask, what is the truth? You can cry. You can yell. You can go silent. They will still sit there with the same unwavering stillness, filtering every word you say through their internal system of reason, values, and consequences. They don't see pressure as a signal of urgency. They see it as a test of clarity. And if your pressure lacks logic, coherence, or alignment with their principles, you've already lost. Here's the thing. Capricorns know that emotional pressure is a tactic. Consciously or not, they've trained themselves to recognize the signs: manipulation cloaked as passion, chaos disguised as spontaneity, fear masquerading as urgency. And when that happens, they activate their defense, detachment through discernment. Even when they agree with you emotionally, they won't act unless the logic supports it. That's why no amount of begging, ultimatums, or emotional chaos can shift them. Unless the numbers add up, the timing aligns, and the choice supports their mission, the answer is no. Firm. Respectful. Final. People mistake this for coldness, but it's not. It's strength. Capricorn isn't numb, they feel deeply. But they've learned that emotion alone cannot build a future. Passion may start the fire, but it is logic that controls the burn. That's why they don't make decisions in the middle of emotional storms. They pause. They observe. And then they act with terrifying precision. In a world that often confuses noise for importance, Capricorn teaches us a sacred truth. Power doesn't scream, it calculates. And that's why you can't control a Capricorn. Because while others are still reacting to the fire, Capricorn already mapped the escape route. Reason 2. They never let emotions overshadow the mission. In a world where people crash their futures for the sake of a feeling, Capricorn refuses. Not because they're heartless, but because they know that emotions, no matter how loud or sincere, are still temporary visitors. Capricorn doesn't shut their heart. They just don't let it drive the car. They've seen what happens when people act on impulse: the jobs lost, the bridges burned, the money wasted, the regrets whispered in the middle of the night. Capricorn doesn't want part in that chaos. They're not here to spiral. They're here to build. You see, every Capricorn walks through life with a blueprint, a mission, a destination only they can see. Maybe it's building a business. Maybe it's becoming financially independent. Maybe it's healing a family line, or simply becoming stronger than the pain they were born into. Whatever their mission is, it's sacred. And they will not abandon it for a dramatic relationship, a fleeting feeling, or a storm that will pass by morning. You might call them too focused. You might say they're emotionally distant. But the truth is, Capricorn has mastered emotional discipline. They don't fall apart when someone else is falling apart. They don't cancel a 5-year plan because someone they love is having a 3-day tantrum. And if you try to pull them away from their purpose with guilt, chaos, or manipulation, they will not scream. They will simply take a step back, look you in the eye, and say, "Not now. I have work to do." It's not cruelty. It's clarity. Capricorns know, you can love someone deeply and still choose not to self-destruct for them. They understand that real love doesn't demand that you abandon your center, and that sacrificing your long-term vision for someone's short-term mood is a trap. Let me be clear, they feel deeply, but they organize those feelings, rather than worship them. They let emotions inform their actions, not control them. In a world addicted to reaction, Capricorn teaches us the power of pause. In a world that confuses emotional chaos for depth, Capricorn reminds us that true depth is quiet and intentional. That's why no one can control a Capricorn. Because while you're still trying to pull them into your storm, they've already built a shelter and locked the door. Reason 3. They were born emotionally mature. Some people spend a lifetime trying to grow up. Capricorns, they came into the world already carrying the weight of it. Even as children, they seemed different. While others were obsessing over cartoons or playground drama, Capricorn was quietly observing. Not because they didn't want to play, but because something inside them whispered, "Pay attention. You're going to need this later." This is the sign that asks about mortgage rates before they learn to drive. That starts saving money before others even understand what a savings account is. Not because they're joyless, but because they're wired for long-term vision. Their souls are ancient. Their gaze is steady. Their energy, grounded even at age 6. Capricorn children are often the ones consoling adults, managing family stress, or stepping into responsibility way too early. They didn't ask for it. But somehow, they just knew. Knew how to hold it together when others fell apart. Knew how to carry burdens with grace. And when someone tries to control a Capricorn, they're not dealing with someone naive. They're facing a soul who's been studying people since childhood. A soul who learned to say no to peer pressure before they knew how to spell the word manipulation. This emotional maturity doesn't mean they're always serious. They laugh. They love. They enjoy life. But they do it with depth. With purpose. They don't chase trends to fit in. They don't compromise their values to be liked. They don't need every room to love them because they've learned to walk alone. You cannot control someone who never needed the crowd to feel real. Someone who questioned the game before the rules were explained. Someone who would rather sit on the sidelines with their peace than dive into chaos for attention. This early maturity is not a burden, it's a shield. And it makes Capricorn immune to tactics that work on others. So go ahead. Try to sweet talk them. Try to shame them. But remember, they've been decoding people since before you knew they were watching. They weren't born for the show. They were born for the strategy. And that's why no one can control a Capricorn. Reason 4. They don't crave approval. Most people are dancing for an audience they can't even see. Capricorns, they're not even on the stage. In a world obsessed with validation, likes, hearts, comments, applause, Capricorn walks the opposite direction. They don't need the room to clap for them to believe in what they're doing. You can't control someone who isn't playing for your approval. And that's where Capricorn becomes dangerous in the most powerful way. They don't chase praise. They chase results. They don't mold themselves to be liked. They build themselves to last. They would rather be misunderstood with integrity than adored for a mask. Capricorn understands something most people never figure out. External approval is fleeting, but internal alignment, that's freedom. This is the sign that will quietly build an empire while the world is busy performing. They don't post every move. They don't announce every win. They just move in silence, with discipline, and let the results speak when the time is right. Tell a Capricorn, "You're amazing," and they'll thank you. But they won't believe you until your actions align with your words. Because they've learned the hard way that flattery is often the first step to manipulation. And that's why they stay guarded. Not cold. Not arrogant. Guarded. Because when you stop craving approval, you start protecting your peace. And Capricorn values peace more than popularity. So when someone tries to control them by offering attention, affection, or applause, They don't flinch, because they already know what they're worth and it doesn't change depending on who's watching. That's the power of Capricorn. Their sense of self isn't up for debate. Their path isn't voted on. Their mission doesn't need a committee. And that terrifies people who rely on others to tell them who they are. Because how do you manipulate someone who's already made peace with being misunderstood? You don't. That's why Capricorn isn't just immune to control. They make the idea of controlling them irrelevant. Reason 5. They're too self-controlled to be controlled. You can't control someone who already mastered the art of controlling themselves. Capricorn doesn't explode. They don't melt down. They don't get baited into arguments or thrown off course by drama. They pause. They breathe. They calculate. Because control, true control, starts from within. Capricorn is like a fortress. Not because they're closed off, but because they know how to guard their energy. In a world where everyone is oversharing, overreacting, and overstimulated, Capricorn is intentional, selective. Still, you push them. They won't push back. They'll pull away. You try to guilt them. They'll analyze your intent before they absorb your words. You try to provoke them. They'll look at you with eyes that say, "Is this supposed to move me?" It won't. Because Capricorn has trained for this. They've built discipline like a muscle, one choice at a time. They've learned that emotions are data, not commands. That silence is a weapon. And that walking away is sometimes the loudest power move of all. This is a sign that doesn't flinch when tested. Because they've already tested themselves in private, in pain, in pressure. When life hit them hardest, they didn't scream. They strategized. When others fell apart, they built a structure. That's why you can't rattle them. You can't guilt-trip someone who doesn't hand you the steering wheel of their emotions. You can't manipulate someone who has learned to sit with discomfort and still hold the line. And here's the part that scares people. Capricorn won't tell you they're detaching. They'll just start detaching. Calmly. Gradually. Permanently. Because they don't threaten to leave. They prepare to. They don't beg for peace. They become it. That kind of self-control is rare. And it's exactly why no one can control a Capricorn. Because the moment you try, you'll realize you never had access in the first place. Reason 6. They believe in action, not promises. Talk is cheap. Capricorn knows it. They've heard the grand speeches, the romantic declarations, the "I promise I'll change" cries, and they've seen how often it all crumbles under the weight of reality. That's why they don't get swept up by pretty words. They don't move for promises. They move for proof. You can't control a Capricorn with fantasy. Because they live in reality, grounded, solid, and unapologetically sober. You could cry, beg, or craft the most poetic plan for the future. But if your actions don't align, if the math doesn't check out, if your consistency falls apart after 3 days, they'll step back, nod once, and walk away. Quietly. Completely. Capricorn doesn't live in maybes. They live in execution. They don't fall in love with potential. They fall in love with evidence. And that's what makes them nearly impossible to manipulate. Because manipulation thrives on hope, on illusion, on what could be, if only. But Capricorn doesn't invest in if only. They invest in what is. They're the ones who will support you, build with you, stand beside you. If you show up. If you follow through. If you prove it. Because this is a sign that holds themselves to high standards. They don't ask anything from others that they don't already demand from themselves. And they know, anyone can talk a good game. Very few can play it. That's why, if you lie to a Capricorn, even once, not just with words, but with inconsistency, they won't explode. They'll just adjust. They'll recalculate your value, reposition you in their life, and move forward like they always do, focused, unshaken. Because Capricorns don't cling to empty potential. They don't cling at all. They listen with discernment. They watch with patience. And they choose with precision. So if you're trying to control them with empty promises, you've already failed. They don't want your words. They want your follow-through. Reason 7. They always have a plan and a backup plan. You can't trap someone who already built the map. Capricorn doesn't just think 2 steps ahead, they think 10. While others are reacting, Capricorn is preparing. While the world panics, Capricorn pivots. Because they were never playing the same game in the first place. They don't rely on luck. They don't count on promises. They build structures, mental, emotional, financial, to protect what matters before the storm ever hits. You think you've cornered them with an ultimatum? Chances are, they already saw it coming, and made peace with the outcome days ago. Capricorn doesn't move impulsively, they move intelligently, and that's why attempts to control them often backfire. Because pressure only works on people who don't have options. Capricorn has options, and they designed them themselves. You may think you're throwing them a curveball, but they already read the weather report, packed the umbrella, and scoped the exits. That's what makes them terrifying to manipulators. You can't ambush a Capricorn. They were never asleep. They plan their moves the way architects design skyscrapers. With intention. With structure. With backup supports, in case of earthquakes. And while others scoff at their overthinking, Capricorns are calmly avoiding disaster. Again, and again, and again. This isn't about paranoia. It's about self-respect. It's about knowing that no one else is responsible for your foundation. So when someone tries to use chaos, confusion, or control to trap them, they simply activate Plan B. If that fails, Plan C. And if all else crumbles, they'll start over, stronger, smarter, and more unshakable than ever. Because here's what most people forget. Capricorn doesn't fear collapse. They fear being unprepared. And that fear has made them invincible. So no, you can't manipulate a Capricorn into panic. Because when the world is burning, they're already 5 steps into the rebuild. Reason 8. They make power moves in silence. Some people announce every step they take. Capricorns don't. Because real power doesn't need a microphone, it needs momentum. While others are broadcasting their plans, Capricorn is building theirs. Quietly, deliberately, without distraction. You won't see them post every milestone. You won't hear them rant when things go wrong. You won't even know they've made a move until it's already too late to stop it. Because Capricorn doesn't play for applause. They play for results. And that's exactly why you can't control them. You can't attack what you can't see coming. You can't sabotage a plan you never knew existed. Capricorn believes in energetic protection. They don't share what's still sacred. They don't expose what's not ready. And they don't owe you access to their next chapter just because you're curious. This makes them dangerous to manipulators. Because silence removes leverage. If you can't read them, you can't sway them. If you don't know what they're building, you can't twist it to your advantage. And so, while others live loudly, Capricorn thrives in mystery. They've learned sometimes the safest way to win is to move when no one's watching. They'll leave a toxic relationship without warning. Quit a draining job without debate. Start over without fanfare. By the time the world realizes they've shifted, they're already too far ahead to catch. That's not being cold. That's being calculated. They're not hiding. They're protecting. And more importantly, they're preserving their energy for the mission, not the noise. So if you're trying to control a Capricorn, you'll be talking to a wall of silence, while they quietly reroute the entire structure beneath your feet. Because when Capricorn disappears from the room, it's not because they're lost. It's because they're leveling up, and you weren't invited. Reason 9. They're loyal, but not naive. Capricorns don't give their loyalty lightly, but when they do, it's ironclad. They're not in it for attention. They're not sticking around for convenience. They're there because they chose you after careful observation, after silent testing, after weighing who you are, when no one's watching. This isn't the kind of loyalty that disappears when things get tough. It's the kind that holds the line through storms. That shows up even when it's hard. That builds with you, grows with you, and fights for what's real. But don't mistake that loyalty for blindness. Because Capricorn might forgive, once, maybe twice, but they never forget. They keep quiet records. Of patterns. Of energy. Of inconsistencies. They may not explode when you disappoint them. They may not call you out on the first offense. But trust me, they noticed. And when the trust breaks, it doesn't shatter. It recalculates. Capricorn loyalty is like a vault. It takes time to earn access. And once it's damaged, the door doesn't swing back open just because you're sorry. Because here's the thing. Capricorns love deeply, but they don't abandon themselves to do it. They'll try. They'll stay. They'll reason. But the moment they realize loyalty is becoming self-sacrifice, they start pulling back silently, but completely. And when they leave, they don't return. Not because they stopped caring, but because they started remembering their worth. You can't control a Capricorn through guilt. You can't guilt-trip someone who's already walked through betrayal and built better boundaries because of it. Their loyalty is sacred, but it's not for sale. It's not for manipulation, and it's not up for negotiation with someone who hasn't earned it. Capricorn knows the difference between loyalty and surrender. between holding on and losing yourself. So if you want their trust, their time, their soul, show up with truth, not tactics. Because once they see your games, they won't play along. They'll walk away. Reason 10, they can hold a straight face for days. Capricorn could be heartbroken. They could be furious. They could be standing in the ruins of something they built for years. And you might never know. Because Capricorn has mastered the art of the straight face. Not as a performance, but as a shield. They've learned, often through painful lessons, that not everyone deserves access to their emotional core. So they protect it with silence, with stillness, with unreadable calm. You won't get the outburst. You won't see the tears fall in public. You won't hear the rage escape their lips. Instead, you'll get quiet. Maybe a nod. Maybe a simple, noted. But behind those calm eyes, a full audit is happening of you, of the situation, of their next move. Capricorn doesn't hide emotions because they don't feel. They hide them because they know that reactivity gives away power. And Capricorn doesn't give power lightly. That's why they're terrifying to those who try to provoke them. You push, and nothing happens. You shout, and they blink once. You beg for a reaction, and they sip their coffee like you didn't speak. It's not emotional coldness. It's emotional command. Because the moment Capricorn shows their hand, they know someone will try to play it. So they wait. They observe. They process. And when they're ready, they make a move so precise, so silent you'll never see it coming. Not because they're cruel, but because they're in control. People often misunderstand this as being cold or distant. But the truth is, Capricorn feels everything, they just don't leak it. Their stillness is strategy. Their silence is strength. Their straight face, a boundary that says, my emotions belong to me, not to the room. You can't manipulate what you can't read. You can't destabilize someone who doesn't blink. And you sure as hell can't control someone who refuses to hand you the remote to their nervous system. Reason 11, they learn fast from their mistakes. Capricorns don't just survive their failures. They weaponize them. They don't wallow in self-pity. They don't spiral in shame. They take notes. Silently, thoroughly, strategically. Every misstep, a lesson. Every betrayal, a case study. Every heartbreak, a recalibration. Capricorn doesn't pretend to be perfect. They know they've trusted the wrong people, stayed too long in the wrong places, held on to things that were already gone. But here's what makes them different. They don't make the same mistake twice. They'll forgive, sure, but they'll adjust the terms. They'll observe even while bleeding. And they'll remember. Not with resentment, but with resolve. You can lie to them once, but don't expect the same version of them to show up the next day. Because Capricorn evolves fast, not loudly, but effectively. They analyze. They adapt. And then they move forward, stronger, sharper, smarter. You might think they're being distant, but what's really happening is calibration. They're reviewing the data, spotting the patterns, upgrading their boundaries, refining their goals. And by the time you try the same tactic again, it doesn't work. The old script doesn't land. The old manipulations fall flat. Because Capricorn doesn't cling to pain. They extract wisdom from it. They turn every scar into structure, every regret into redirection. This is why they become more unshakable with time, more self-aware, more discerning, more unwilling to accept anything that doesn't match their evolution. You can't control a Capricorn who's made peace with their past, because they've already turned every failure into foundation. So if you're hoping they'll fall for the same game twice, you're not dealing with the same person anymore. Reason 12, they don't follow trends, they build empires. While the world zigzags through every new trend, Capricorn builds straight lines to legacy. They don't chase what's hot. They chase what lasts. They don't ask, what's viral right now? They ask, what will matter in 20 years? Because Capricorn isn't here for the moment. They're here for the mission. They don't change their identity to fit the crowd. They don't shift direction every time the internet breathes. They stay grounded in a world obsessed with floating. While others obsess over being seen, Capricorn obsesses over what they're building. That's why you can't manipulate them with popularity. You can't tempt them with hype. You can't pressure them into rushing. Because their vision isn't shaped by urgency. It's shaped by purpose. They're the ones investing in what no one else sees yet. The ones working quietly behind the scenes while everyone else fights for center stage. And when their time comes, they don't need to announce it. The work speaks for itself. Capricorn understands something vital. Empires aren't built in noise. They're built in discipline. They're not distracted by every shiny thing. They don't need every room to applaud. They just lay brick after brick, with consistency, with clarity, and with complete trust in their direction. And that's why they're impossible to control, because they don't care about winning the short game. They're not seduced by overnight success. They're building something real. And real takes time. So when someone tries to shake their path with trends, temptation, or time pressure, Capricorn simply doesn't move, because they know what they're building can't be rushed, can't be borrowed, can't be copied, only built, patiently, quietly, powerfully, and when they're done, it won't just be impressive, it will be unshakable. Final conclusion, the silent power of Capricorn. So now you see, it's not that Capricorn is hard to understand, it's that they are not here to be understood by everyone. They were not designed for the noise. They were built for the climb. In a world where people chase attention, Capricorn builds legacy. Where others speak without thinking, Capricorn watches in silence. Where most break under pressure, Capricorn becomes the pressure. They are not loud, but they are present. Not flashy, but unforgettable. Not controlling, but impossible to control. Because to control a Capricorn, you would have to outthink them, outlast them, outdiscipline them, and outfeel them, without them ever noticing. And that is nearly impossible. They've been tested by time, by pain, by betrayal, by silence. And each time, they came back colder, wiser, sharper. Not to prove anything, but to fulfill a mission only they can see. You might overlook them. You might underestimate them. But you'll never outlast them. Because Capricorn doesn't fight for attention. They build in the shadows. And when they rise like mountains. Slow, unstoppable, and eternal. Lesson to take away. Loyalty without naivety. Power without noise. Success without permission. That is the Capricorn way. And if you're someone who's been quiet for too long, if you've been building, healing, holding it all together without applause, then maybe, just maybe, you've got a little Capricorn in your soul, too. Call to action, Zodiac Secrets Revealed. If this message awakened something in you, something deeper than the surface noise of the world, then this channel, Zodiac Secrets Revealed, was made for you. We uncover the hidden strengths. We speak the silent truths. We reveal what the world refuses to see. So if you're ready to walk with the wise, if you're ready to discover more secrets like this, subscribe now. Join the journey, and never look at Capricorn the same way again. Because the mountain may be quiet, but it is always rising.